Have you ever pulled an all-nighter and told yourself, I'll catch up on sleep later? Most of us have. Maybe it was for an exam. Maybe it was for work. Maybe you stayed up watching videos, scrolling social media, or binge watching a show that somehow turned into 3 episodes, then 5. The next morning, you felt terrible. Your head felt heavy. You couldn't focus. You forgot simple things. Everything seemed harder than it should have been. Most people think that's just because they're tired. But according to Why We Sleep, something much bigger is happening. The truth is that sleep isn't simply a period when your body shuts down. It isn't wasted time. It isn't dead time. In fact, while you're asleep, some of the most important work your body will ever do is happening behind the scenes. Sleep is not the absence of activity. Sleep is activity. And it's some of the most important activity in your entire life. For years, scientists were puzzled by sleep. Think about it. From an evolutionary perspective, sleep seems like a terrible idea. When you're asleep, you're vulnerable. You can't hunt. You can't gather food. You can't defend yourself. You can't reproduce. Yet every species on Earth spends such a huge portion of its life unconscious. Yet sleep exists everywhere. Birds sleep, dogs sleep, cats sleep, whales sleep. Even tiny insects have sleep-like states. Scientists have discovered that every species studied so far needs some form of sleep. That tells us something important. Sleep must be doing something incredibly valuable. Otherwise, evolution would have gotten rid of it long ago. The problem is that modern society often treats sleep like an inconvenience. People brag about sleeping 4 hours a night. Business culture celebrates hustle. Students wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. Many people believe that sleep is for the weak. The author Matthew Walker argues that this belief is one of the most dangerous misunderstandings of modern life. Because when you cut sleep, you're not gaining extra time. You're sacrificing performance, health, and even longevity. Imagine buying the most advanced smartphone in the world. It has incredible hardware, cutting-edge software, and amazing features. But every night, instead of charging it, you leave the battery at 10%. How well would it perform after a few days? Not very well. That's essentially what many people do to their brains. They expect peak performance while constantly running on low power. And then they wonder why they feel stressed, forgetful, anxious, and exhausted. One of the most fascinating discoveries in sleep science is that your brain doesn't rest when you sleep. In some ways, it's actually busier. While you're asleep, your brain is organizing memories. It's sorting information. It's strengthening important neural connections. It's removing unnecessary data. Think of it like a cleaning crew entering a giant office building after everyone leaves. During the day, the office is chaotic. People are moving around. Papers are everywhere. Work is constantly happening. At night, the cleaning crew comes in. They organize. They clean. They throw away trash. They prepare everything for the next day. Your brain does something very similar. While you're sleeping, it performs maintenance that simply can't happen as efficiently when you're awake. And that's just the beginning. One of the biggest breakthroughs in neuroscience came when researchers discovered what some people call the brain's cleaning system. Throughout the day, your brain produces waste products, just like a city produces garbage. As you think, learn, work, and live, metabolic waste accumulates. Scientists discovered that during deep sleep, the spaces between brain cells actually expand. This allows fluid to flow more freely through the brain. That fluid helps wash away waste products that build up during waking hours. In simple terms, your brain gets a deep cleaning while you sleep. Imagine never taking out the trash in your house. At first, things might seem okay. Then the garbage starts piling up. The smell gets worse. The environment becomes unhealthy. Now imagine doing that for years. That's why sleep is so important. Your brain literally depends on it. The effects of sleep deprivation show up faster than most people realize. Many people think they can adapt to less sleep. They say things like, "I only need 5 hours. I've always been a short sleeper. I function fine." But research tells a different story. Here's the scary part. When people become sleep deprived, their performance drops, but their awareness of that drop also declines. In other words, you get worse at things while becoming less capable of noticing that you're getting worse. That's a dangerous combination. It's like driving a car with failing brakes while convincing yourself everything is fine. One famous comparison often used by sleep researchers is alcohol. After staying awake for about 19 or 20 hours, mental impairment can resemble being legally intoxicated in many places. Think about that. Many people would never drive drunk, but they regularly drive sleep-deprived. The danger is real. Lack of sleep affects reaction time, decision-making, focus, and judgment, and the consequences can be serious. But sleep isn't only about avoiding mistakes. It's also about unlocking your best performance. Athletes perform better when they're well rested. Students learn faster. Workers become more productive. Creative people generate better ideas. Even emotional resilience improves. When you're well rested, life's challenges feel more manageable. When you're sleep deprived, small problems can feel overwhelming. Have you ever noticed that everything seems more irritable after a bad night's sleep? A minor inconvenience suddenly becomes a major crisis. That's not your imagination. Sleep plays a critical role in emotional regulation. It helps your brain maintain balance. Without enough sleep, emotional reactions become stronger and harder to control. The world itself hasn't changed. Your brain's ability to handle it has. This is one reason why sleep affects nearly every aspect of life. Your memory depends on it. Your learning depends on it. Your mood depends on it. Your immune system depends on it. Your physical health depends on it. Your relationships depend on it. Your career performance depends on it. And yet many people treat sleep as optional. The central message of why we sleep is surprisingly simple. Sleep is not a luxury. It's not a reward you earn after finishing everything else. It's not something you can endlessly trade away in exchange for productivity. Sleep is a biological necessity, just as you need food, just as you need water, just as you need oxygen. Every night, your body and brain enter one of the most sophisticated repair processes found in nature. The amazing part is that this process is completely free. No special equipment, no expensive membership, no expensive miracle supplement, no secret hack. Just sleep. And according to Matthew Walker, protecting your sleep may be one of the most powerful decisions you can make for your health, your happiness, and your future. The question isn't whether you can afford to spend time sleeping. The real question is whether you can afford not to. When most people think about sleep, they think of it as one thing. You're either awake or asleep. Simple, right? Not exactly. One of the biggest discoveries in modern sleep science is that sleep isn't a single state. It's actually a carefully organized cycle made up of different stages, each performing its own important job. Think of sleep like a night shift in a factory. During the day, the factory is busy producing products, handling customers, and dealing with problems. At night, different teams come in. One team repairs machinery. Another organizes inventory. Another updates records. Another plans for tomorrow. If any of those teams fail to show up, problems start piling up. Your brain works in a surprisingly similar way. Every night, it cycles through two major forms of sleep: NREM sleep and REM sleep. Both are essential, both are powerful, and both are doing completely different jobs. The problem is that most people have never been taught what these stages actually do. As a result, they underestimate how important sleep really is. Let's start with NREM sleep. NREM stands for non-rapid eye movement sleep. This is the deeper, quieter form of sleep. It's the type of sleep most people imagine when they think about someone sleeping peacefully. Breathing slows down, heart rate drops, body temperature decreases, brain activity becomes slower and more synchronized. This is where a lot of physical restoration happens. If your body were a construction site, NREM sleep would be the repair crew. During deep NREM sleep, tissues are repaired, muscles recover, the immune system strengthens, growth hormone is released, energy reserves are replenished. Your body starts fixing the damage accumulated throughout the day. Even if you spent the entire day sitting at a desk, your body still experienced stress. Cells were damaged, systems were strained, resources were used. NREM sleep is when maintenance begins. This is one reason athletes take sleep so seriously. Many elite athletes prioritize sleep just as much as training. They know that muscles don't actually grow during workouts. Workouts create stress, recovery creates improvement, and a huge part of that recovery happens during sleep. But NREM sleep doesn't just help your body, it helps your brain too. Imagine spending an entire day collecting information: emails, conversations, books, meetings, videos, new skills, facts, names, numbers. Your brain is constantly taking in information. Without a system to organize all of it, things would become chaotic. That's where deep NREM sleep comes in. Researchers often compare it to transferring files. Throughout the day, your brain temporarily stores information. At night, during deep sleep, important memories are transferred into more stable long-term storage. It's like moving files from a desktop cluttered with random documents into carefully organized folders. Without enough deep sleep, information has nowhere reliable to go. That's why pulling an all-nighter before an exam is often one of the worst strategies imaginable. Students stay awake longer to study more material, but by sacrificing sleep, they damage the very process that turns learning into memory. You may spend more hours studying, but your brain loses some of its ability to keep what you've learned. Now let's talk about the second major type of sleep, REM sleep. REM stands for rapid eye movement sleep. This stage is fascinating because the brain becomes incredibly active. In fact, during REM sleep, certain parts of the brain can be almost as active as they are when you're awake. Your eyes move rapidly beneath your eyelids, dreams become vivid, the brain enters a unique state unlike anything else. If NREM sleep is the repair crew, REM sleep is the innovation department. This is where creativity, emotional processing, and problem-solving thrive. Many people have experienced this without realizing it. Have you ever struggled with a problem all day, gone to sleep, and then suddenly had a solution the next morning? It feels like magic, but it's not magic. Your sleeping brain was still working. During REM sleep, the brain begins connecting ideas that may seem unrelated. It searches for patterns, it builds associations, it reorganizes information in creative ways. This is one reason sleep often improves problem-solving ability. The brain continues processing information even when conscious effort stops. Dreams are a major part of this process. For centuries, dreams were viewed as mysterious or meaningless. Some people believe they were messages from supernatural forces. Others dismiss them as random nonsense. Modern research suggests something more practical. Dreams may help the brain process emotions and experiences. Think about everything you experience in a typical day: stress, disappointment, excitement, fear, hope, embarrassment, success, failure. Those emotions don't simply disappear. Your brain has to deal with them somehow. REM sleep appears to help with that process. Matthew Walker describes dreaming as a kind of overnight emotional therapy. The events remain, the emotional intensity often decreases. You wake up feeling more balanced than you did the night before. Most people have felt this effect. Something seems overwhelming late at night. You sleep. The next morning, the problem is still there, but it feels more manageable. Nothing changed externally. Something changed internally. Sleep helped. What makes all of this even more remarkable is how NREM sleep and REM sleep work together. They're not competitors, they're partners. Throughout the night, your brain cycles between these states again and again. A typical night includes multiple sleep cycles. Each cycle is roughly 90 minutes. You move from lighter sleep into deeper NREM sleep and eventually into REM sleep. Then the process repeats, over and over, like a carefully choreographed dance. Interestingly, the balance changes throughout the night. Earlier in the night, deep NREM sleep dominates. Later in the night, REM sleep becomes longer and more frequent. This has important consequences. Many people think that 6 hours of sleep is almost the same as 8 hours, but those final hours often contain a large amount of REM sleep. When you cut sleep short, you're not trimming sleep evenly. You're often eliminating some of the REM-rich periods that occur closer to morning. It's like leaving a movie before the ending. You miss an important part of the experience. This is why sleep quality and sleep quantity both matter. Getting enough total sleep allows the brain to complete its full sequence of recovery, learning, and emotional processing. You need the physical restoration of NREM sleep. You need the creativity and emotional benefits of REM sleep. You need both. Nature didn't design them by accident. Millions of years of evolution shaped these systems because they provide enormous survival advantages. The more scientists study sleep, the clearer the picture becomes. Sleep isn't passive, it's productive. It's not empty time, it's highly organized biological work. Every night, your brain runs one of the most sophisticated maintenance programs on Earth. Deep sleep repairs and strengthens. REM sleep integrates and innovates. One helps build a healthier body, the other helps build a sharper mind, and together they prepare you for the challenges waiting when morning arrives. Imagine spending hours studying for an important exam. You read the textbook, you take notes, you highlight key points, you watch videos, you review flashcards. By the end of the day, your brain feels full. Then you face a choice. Do you stay up all night studying, or do you go to sleep? Most people assume that staying awake gives them an advantage. After all, more study time should mean better results, right? According to the science in Why We Sleep, that's often exactly the wrong choice, because learning doesn't end when you stop studying. In many ways, learning is only half finished until you sleep. One of the most important ideas in this book is that sleep is deeply connected to memory, not just remembering facts, not just recalling names, but the entire process of learning itself. In other words, if memory is the foundation of intelligence, then sleep is one of the builders. Many people think of the brain as a storage device. You put information in, and it stays there. But the brain doesn't work that way. It's more like a busy office. New information arrives constantly: phone calls, emails, documents, meetings, requests. Without organization, everything becomes chaos. Imagine dumping thousands of papers onto a desk every day without ever filing anything away. Soon, finding what you need would become impossible. The brain faces a similar challenge. Every day, it absorbs enormous amounts of information. Some of it matters, most of it doesn't. Sleep helps separate the important from the unimportant. Researchers have discovered that when we learn something new, the brain temporarily stores that information in an area called the hippocampus. Think of the hippocampus as a temporary storage locker. It's useful, but it has limited space. During sleep, especially deep NREM sleep, the brain begins transferring important information from temporary storage into more permanent long-term memory networks. It's similar to moving files from a crowded desktop into an organized archive. Without sleep, that transfer process becomes less effective. Information remains fragile, memories become easier to lose, learning becomes less efficient. This explains something many students experience. Have you ever spent hours studying late at night only to forget much of the material the next day? It's frustrating. You put in the effort, you invested the time, yet the information somehow vanished. The problem may not have been your studying. The problem may have been your lack of sleep. Matthew Walker often summarizes the relationship with a simple idea: sleep before learning, sleep after learning. The first part surprises many people. Why sleep before learning? Because sleep prepares your brain to absorb new information. Imagine trying to pour water into a sponge that's already saturated. Not much additional water can be absorbed. Now imagine a fresh sponge. It can absorb far more. Sleep essentially resets the brain's ability to learn. When you're well rested, your brain becomes more receptive to new information. When you're sleep deprived, that ability declines significantly. Researchers have tested this directly. In one study, participants were divided into two groups. One group received a full night of sleep, the other stayed awake. The next day, both groups were asked to learn new information. The results were striking. The sleep-deprived group showed a dramatic reduction in learning ability. Some studies suggest that sleep deprivation can reduce the brain's capacity to form new memories by around 40%. Think about that for a moment. Imagine spending extra hours awake trying to learn while your brain's ability to absorb information is operating at a major disadvantage. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a giant hole in the bottom. The effort increases, the results decrease. That's only half the story. The second part is sleep after learning. This is where memory consolidation occurs. Consolidation is the process of strengthening and stabilizing memories. Without it, information remains vulnerable. With it, memories become more durable and easier to access later. You can think of learning as writing a document. Sleep is the save button. If you never save the file, there's always a risk of losing your work. Every night, your brain is pressing save on the most important information from your day. And it's doing more than saving, it's organizing. Sleep helps the brain connect new information with existing knowledge. This is where intelligence becomes especially interesting. Many people think intelligence is simply about knowing more facts, but intelligence is often about recognizing relationships between facts. It's about seeing patterns, making connections, finding meaning. And sleep plays a major role in that process. During sleep, the brain doesn't just store information like a warehouse. It actively reorganizes information. It looks for links between ideas. It builds associations. It creates larger networks of understanding. This helps explain why solutions sometimes appear after a night's sleep. You may struggle with a problem all day, then suddenly wake up with fresh insight. The brain continued working while you slept. In fact, some of history's most famous creative breakthroughs are connected to sleep and dreams. Scientists, inventors, musicians, and writers have all reported moments of inspiration that emerged after sleeping. The sleeping brain appears remarkably skilled at connecting dots that the waking brain sometimes misses. This creative function becomes especially powerful during REM sleep. During REM sleep, the brain becomes less restricted by rigid logic and conventional thinking. Ideas can mix more freely. Unexpected connections can emerge. The result is often greater creativity and improved problem solving. Have you ever gone to bed feeling stuck and woken up with clarity? That's not unusual. That's one of the gifts of sleep. Unfortunately, modern culture often treats sleep as the enemy of productivity. People brag about working late. Students compete over who slept the least. Professionals wear exhaustion like a status symbol. The message seems to be that successful people sacrifice sleep, but the science suggests the opposite. The most effective learners aren't necessarily the ones spending the most hours awake. They're often the ones protecting the quality of their sleep, because every hour spent learning becomes more valuable when sleep is allowed to do its job. Imagine two students. One studies for 8 hours and sleeps 8 hours. The other studies for 10 hours and sleeps only 4. The second student may feel more dedicated. They may believe they're working harder, but their brain is missing critical opportunities to learn, consolidate, and organize information. The extra study time may not compensate for the lost sleep. In some cases, it may actually make performance worse. The same principle applies far beyond school. Learning doesn't stop after graduation. Adults are constantly learning new jobs, new technologies, new skills, new languages, new challenges. Every profession depends on memory and adaptation. Whether you're an engineer, entrepreneur, teacher, athlete, artist, or business owner, your ability to learn is one of your greatest assets, and that ability is heavily influenced by sleep. The central lesson is simple but powerful. Sleep is not time taken away from learning. Sleep is part of learning. It is part of memory. It is part of intelligence. When you sleep, your brain is not shutting down. It's transforming today's experiences into tomorrow's knowledge. Every night, while you lie quietly in bed, billions of neurons are hard at work. Memories are being strengthened, connections are being built, knowledge is being organized, patterns are being discovered, and the foundation of future intelligence is being quietly constructed. The next time you're tempted to trade sleep for a few extra hours of work or study, remember this: you are not choosing between learning and sleeping. You are choosing between two different ways of learning, and one of them happens with your eyes closed. Most people know that sleep deprivation makes them tired. That's obvious. You stay up late, and the next day you feel sleepy. No surprise there. The real problem is that sleep deprivation does much more than make you feel tired. It quietly affects almost every system in your body. And unlike a broken bone or a visible injury, the damage often happens in ways you can't immediately see. That's what makes it dangerous. If you eat a bad meal, you might get a stomachache. If you touch a hot stove, you'll feel pain instantly. But if you consistently sleep too little, the consequences usually arrive slowly. Weeks become months, months become years, and many people never connect their health problems to the sleep they sacrificed. According to Why We Sleep, sleep deprivation is one of the biggest public health challenges of modern life. The shocking part is that millions of people are living with chronic sleep deprivation without realizing how much it is affecting them. Ask someone how much sleep they get. Many will proudly say, about 6 hours, 5.5 on weekdays, I'll catch up on weekends. These answers have become normal, but normal doesn't necessarily mean healthy. For most adults, consistently sleeping less than 7 hours can begin to create measurable problems. The body keeps score even when you're not paying attention. One of the first systems affected by sleep deprivation is the immune system. Your immune system is your body's defense force. It protects you from viruses, bacteria, and countless threats you encounter every day. When you sleep, the immune system gets stronger. When you don't sleep enough, it becomes less effective. Think about how often people get sick after periods of intense stress and poor sleep. Maybe it's after final exams. Maybe it's after a major work project. Maybe it's after weeks of late nights. The pattern is common because the immune system has been weakened. Researchers have found that even modest sleep loss can significantly reduce immune function. In simple terms, less sleep often means less protection. But the impact doesn't stop there. Sleep deprivation also disrupts the body's metabolism. This is where things become especially surprising. Many people think weight gain is only about diet and exercise. Calories in, calories out. Simple. The reality is more complicated. Sleep plays a major role in regulating hunger and appetite. When you don't get enough sleep, hormones that control hunger begin to change. One hormone that signals fullness decreases, another hormone that increases hunger rises. As a result, sleep-deprived people often feel hungrier even when their bodies don't need more food. And they don't just crave any food, they tend to crave high-calorie foods, rich in sugar, fat, and carbohydrates. Think about your own experience. After a great night's sleep, choosing healthy food often feels easier. After sleeping only 4 or 5 hours, suddenly that donut, pizza, or bag of chips looks a lot more tempting. That's not simply a lack of willpower. Biology is involved. Your body is trying to compensate for fatigue by seeking quick energy. Over time, this can contribute to weight gain and obesity. The relationship between sleep and diabetes is equally concerning. Sleep helps regulate how the body processes glucose. When sleep becomes inadequate, the body's ability to control blood sugar begins to suffer. Researchers have observed that even short periods of sleep restriction can produce changes similar to those seen in prediabetes. In other words, poor sleep can make it harder for your body to manage one of its most important energy systems. Then there's the cardiovascular system. Your heart works non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your entire life. Sleep provides critical opportunities for cardiovascular recovery. Blood pressure naturally decreases during healthy sleep. The heart gets a chance to operate under less strain. When sleep is consistently shortened, that recovery period becomes smaller. Over time, the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke can increase. The connection between sleep and the brain may be even more alarming. Most people notice the immediate effects first: difficulty concentrating, forgetfulness, mental fog, poor decision-making. But chronic sleep deprivation can go much deeper. Remember the brain's cleaning system we discussed earlier? During sleep, waste products are cleared away. When sleep becomes insufficient, that cleaning process becomes less effective. Imagine skipping garbage collection week after week. Eventually, waste begins to accumulate. The brain faces a similar challenge. Scientists continue to study how long-term sleep loss may influence brain health as people age. The findings have made sleep one of the most important areas of modern neuroscience. Emotional health also suffers when sleep disappears. You've probably experienced this personally. After a poor night's sleep, small annoyances feel larger, patience becomes harder, stress feels heavier, your emotional reactions become stronger. This happens because sleep helps regulate emotional centers within the brain. When sleep is reduced, those systems become less balanced. The result is greater emotional volatility. Problems that would normally seem manageable can suddenly feel overwhelming. This is one reason sleep deprivation is strongly connected to anxiety and depression. Of course, mental health is complex and influenced by many factors. Sleep isn't the only factor, but it is one of the most powerful and often overlooked contributors. One particularly fascinating finding involves the brain's response to negative experiences. Researchers have found that sleep-deprived individuals often show stronger reactions to emotional stimuli. Their brains become more reactive. It's as though the emotional volume knob has been turned up. Without adequate sleep, the brain loses some of its ability to maintain perspective. Everything feels louder, everything feels bigger, everything feels more urgent. The consequences extend into everyday performance as well. At work, sleep deprivation reduces productivity. At school, it impairs learning. On the road, it increases accident risk. In relationships, it can lead to more conflict and less empathy. The scary part is that these effects accumulate gradually. Few people wake up one morning and suddenly notice years of sleep debt. Instead, they adjust to feeling below their best. The new normal becomes fatigue. Brain fog becomes normal. Low energy becomes normal. Poor focus becomes normal. People begin to assume that's just part of getting older. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's simply the result of insufficient sleep. Perhaps the most dangerous myth is the belief that we can train ourselves to need less sleep. Many people say, "I've gotten used to it." The science suggests otherwise. You may become accustomed to feeling sleep deprived, but that doesn't mean your body has stopped needing sleep. It simply means you've adjusted your expectations downward. Your performance may still be impaired even if it feels normal. That's like living next to a noisy highway for years. Eventually, you stop noticing the sound, but the noise hasn't disappeared, you've just become used to it. The same thing can happen with sleep loss. The central message of this chapter is straightforward. Sleep deprivation isn't merely about feeling sleepy, it's a full-body biological disruption. It affects the immune system, it affects metabolism, it affects the heart, it affects the brain, it affects emotions, it affects decision-making, it affects long-term health, and because the effects build slowly, many people underestimate the cost. Every hour of lost sleep may seem small. One late night doesn't feel important, but over months and years, those hours add up. The body notices, the brain notices, and eventually the consequences appear. Sleep is not optional maintenance, it's essential maintenance. The body can survive without many things for a short period, but when sleep is consistently sacrificed, the bill always comes due. The only question is, when? Have you ever had a dream so strange that you woke up wondering what just happened? Maybe you were flying over a city. Maybe you were back in school taking a test you never studied for. Maybe you were talking to someone who hasn't been part of your life for years. Dreams can be weird. Sometimes they're funny. Sometimes they're terrifying. Sometimes they're so realistic that for a few seconds after waking up, you can't tell whether they actually happened. For thousands of years, people have been fascinated by dreams. Ancient civilizations believed dreams were messages from the gods. Kings consulted dream interpreters before making important decisions. Some cultures viewed dreams as prophecies about the future. Others believed dreams revealed hidden truths about the soul. Today, most people don't think of dreams that way. In fact, many people barely think about dreams at all. They wake up, forget them within minutes, and move on with their day. But according to Why We Sleep, dreams may be doing something far more important than most people realize. They may be helping your brain stay emotionally healthy. They may be improving creativity. They may even be helping you solve problems while you sleep. And all of this happens without your conscious awareness. To understand dreams, we first need to understand REM sleep. REM stands for Rapid Eye Movement Sleep. This is the stage where most vivid dreaming occurs. Your eyes move rapidly beneath closed eyelids. Your brain becomes highly active. In some regions, activity levels can look surprisingly similar to being awake. At the same time, your body is temporarily paralyzed. This sounds scary, but it's actually a safety feature. Imagine acting out every dream physically. If you dreamed about running, fighting, or jumping, you might hurt yourself. The body prevents that by temporarily disabling most voluntary muscle movement. Meanwhile, the brain gets busy, very busy. One of Matthew Walker's most fascinating arguments is that dreaming serves as a form of overnight emotional therapy. Think about your day. Even on a normal day, you experience dozens of emotions: frustration, excitement, embarrassment, stress, disappointment, hope, anxiety, joy. Your brain doesn't simply ignore those emotional experiences, it has to process them somehow. Dreaming appears to be one of the ways it does that. Walker describes dreaming as a process in which the brain revisits emotional experiences in a safer environment. The events are replayed, the memories are reviewed, but something important changes. The emotional intensity gets reduced. It's almost as if the brain is saying, let's keep the lesson, but remove some of the pain. That's a remarkable idea. Imagine having access to a therapist every night, a therapist who works for free, a therapist who helps process emotional experiences while you sleep. That's essentially how Walker describes dreaming. And if you've lived long enough, you've probably experienced evidence of this yourself. Think about a time when something upsetting happened. Maybe you had an argument. Maybe you received bad news. Maybe something went wrong at work. Late at night, the situation felt overwhelming. Your mind kept replaying it. You couldn't stop thinking about it. Then you slept. The next morning, the problem was still there, but somehow it felt different. It felt more manageable. You had more perspective. You felt calmer. What changed? Often, sleep helped your brain process the emotional impact. The event remained. The emotional charge decreased. Researchers have found that REM sleep may play a critical role in this process. During REM sleep, emotional memories can be revisited under unique neurochemical conditions. The brain appears to be processing experiences while reducing some of the stress associated with them. This may explain why chronic sleep deprivation often makes emotional problems worse. If you're not getting enough REM sleep, you're missing opportunities for emotional recovery. The brain isn't receiving the full overnight maintenance it depends on. Dreams aren't only about emotions, though. They're also connected to creativity, and this is where things get really interesting. When you're awake, your thinking tends to follow familiar patterns. Logic guides your decisions. Experience shapes your expectations. Your brain often stays within established pathways. That's useful for daily life, but it can also limit creativity. During dreaming, those boundaries become more flexible. Ideas that seem unrelated can suddenly connect. Memories from different periods of life can mix together. Concepts that would never meet during normal waking thought can collide. As strange as dreams sometimes appear, this unusual mixing process may be one of their greatest strengths. Creativity often comes from connecting existing ideas in new ways. Dreaming seems to provide an environment where exactly that can happen. History is filled with stories of discoveries and inventions linked to sleep. Scientists, artists, writers, and musicians have reported finding solutions after dreaming. Whether every story is perfectly accurate is less important than the broader point. Sleep appears to enhance creative problem solving. Have you ever struggled with a problem for hours? You try every solution you can think of, nothing works. Eventually, you give up and go to bed. Then, the next morning, an answer suddenly appears. It feels as though the solution came out of nowhere, but it didn't. Your brain kept working while you slept, not consciously, not deliberately, but effectively. Researchers have repeatedly found that sleep improves the ability to discover hidden patterns and solve complex problems. The sleeping brain isn't inactive. It's exploring possibilities, making connections, testing combinations, looking for solutions. This may be one reason some of humanity's greatest ideas seem to arrive unexpectedly. The groundwork is often being laid long before conscious awareness catches up. Dreams may also help us understand ourselves. The stories created during sleep often draw from personal experiences, memories, fears, goals, and emotions. They're not random movies projected onto the mind, they're built from pieces of your life. The brain takes those pieces and rearranges them in fascinating ways. Sometimes the result is nonsense, sometimes it's insight, sometimes it's both. What's important is that dreaming appears to be a meaningful biological process, not merely a useless side effect of sleep. For years, some scientists questioned whether dreams had any real function. The more researchers learn about sleep, the harder that position becomes to defend. Dreaming consistently appears linked to emotional regulation, memory processing, creativity, and learning. That doesn't mean every dream contains a hidden message, it doesn't mean every dream predicts the future, and it doesn't mean you need to analyze every strange detail. If you dream about showing up to work wearing a superhero costume, riding a giraffe, it's probably not a cosmic revelation. Sometimes dreams are simply weird, but the overall process appears deeply important. The modern world creates a problem, though. Many people shorten their sleep. They stay up later, wake up earlier, and unknowingly cut into the REM-rich sleep that occurs during the latter part of the night. Remember, REM sleep becomes longer and more frequent as morning approaches. When you consistently sleep only 5 or 6 hours, you're often sacrificing some of the very sleep most associated with dreaming. That means less emotional processing, less creative integration, less overnight mental maintenance. The loss may not be obvious immediately, but over time it matters. The message of this chapter is simple. Dreams are not meaningless noise. They are not wasted brain activity. They are part of an incredibly sophisticated system that helps keep the human mind healthy. While you sleep, your brain is doing much more than resting. It's healing emotional wounds, it's organizing experiences, it's exploring ideas, it's building creative connections, and it's preparing you for another day in a complicated world. The next time you wake up from a bizarre dream, don't dismiss it too quickly. The dream itself may not matter, but the process that created it almost certainly does. By now, we've covered a lot. We've seen that sleep isn't passive. We've learned that sleep helps build memory, strengthen learning, regulate emotions, support physical health, and even boost creativity. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. Sleep is important. But what do I actually do about it? That's exactly where Why We Sleep becomes incredibly practical. Because understanding the science is one thing, applying it is another. The good news is that improving sleep doesn't usually require expensive gadgets, miracle supplements, or complicated routines. In fact, many of the most effective sleep strategies are surprisingly simple. The challenge isn't complexity. The challenge is consistency. Let's start with the single most important recommendation in the entire book. Keep a consistent sleep schedule. If you could only follow one piece of sleep advice, this would probably be it. Go to bed at roughly the same time every night, wake up at roughly the same time every morning, even on weekends. This sounds boring. Most people want a more exciting answer, a secret trick, a special supplement, a magic sleep hack. But your brain loves routine. Inside your body is a biological clock known as the circadian rhythm. Think of it as your internal timekeeper. It regulates sleepiness, alertness, body temperature, hormone release, and countless other functions. When you maintain a regular schedule, your body learns when to prepare for sleep and when to prepare for wakefulness. When your schedule constantly changes, your body gets confused. It's like repeatedly changing time zones. Many people sleep in late on weekends to recover from a week of poor sleep. It feels good temporarily, but it can make Monday mornings even harder. Consistency is one of the strongest signals you can give your biological clock. Respect the power of light. For most of human history, people lived according to natural light. The sun came up, people woke up. The sun went down, people gradually prepared for sleep. Modern life changed everything. Now we carry miniature suns in our pockets. Phones, tablets, laptops, televisions, bright LED lighting. The problem isn't just the content, it's the light itself. Light is one of the strongest factors influencing your circadian rhythm. Morning light tells your brain it's time to be awake. Darkness tells your brain it's time to prepare for sleep. When you stare at bright screens late at night, your brain receives mixed signals. It's like telling your body that sunset hasn't happened yet. This can delay the release of melatonin, a hormone involved in sleep timing. You don't need to live by candlelight, but reducing bright light exposure before bed can make a meaningful difference. Dim lights when possible, put devices away earlier, give your brain a chance to recognize that nighttime has arrived. Be careful with caffeine. Most people love caffeine: coffee, tea, energy drinks, soft drinks. It's one of the most widely used performance-enhancing substances on Earth, and for good reason. It works. The problem is that caffeine often works longer than people realize. Many people assume that because they can fall asleep after drinking coffee, caffeine isn't affecting them. But sleep quality and sleep quantity are not the same thing. You can be asleep while still experiencing disrupted sleep. Caffeine blocks a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine builds up throughout the day and contributes to feelings of sleepiness. As bedtime approaches, higher adenosine levels help create pressure to sleep. Caffeine interferes with that process. The result is often less deep sleep, even if you don't fully notice it. For many people, reducing caffeine intake later in the day can improve sleep dramatically. Avoid using alcohol as a sleep aid. This recommendation surprises a lot of people. Many assume alcohol helps sleep. After all, alcohol often makes people feel sleepy. The problem is that sleepiness and healthy sleep are not the same thing. Alcohol acts more like a sedative than a natural sleep promoter. It may help you lose consciousness faster, but it disrupts important sleep processes, especially REM sleep. Remember everything we've discussed about dreaming, emotional processing, and memory integration? Alcohol interferes with those functions. The result is often fragmented, lower quality sleep. You may spend enough hours in bed and still wake up unrefreshed. Keep your bedroom cool. Here's something many people don't know. To fall asleep effectively, your body needs to lower its core temperature slightly. That's part of the natural sleep process. A cooler room can support this transition. A room that's too hot often makes falling asleep more difficult and staying asleep more challenging. You don't need to turn your bedroom into a refrigerator, but most people sleep better in a slightly cool environment than a warm one. This is one reason many people enjoy sleeping under blankets in a cool room. The combination helps support the body's natural temperature regulation. Build a wind-down routine. Think about how you wake up in the morning. You don't instantly go from deep sleep to peak performance. There's a transition. The same principle applies at night. Your brain benefits from a gradual transition into sleep. Unfortunately, many people do the opposite. They answer emails, watch stressful news, scroll social media, handle work problems, then expect immediate sleep. That's like driving at full speed and expecting the car to stop instantly without braking. A wind-down routine helps create that braking process. Read a book, stretch, take a warm shower, listen to calming music, practice meditation, journal. The specific activity matters less than the consistency. You're creating a signal that tells your brain the day is ending. Don't try too hard to sleep. This may be the most counterintuitive advice in the book. The harder some people try to sleep, the harder sleeping becomes. You've probably experienced this. You look at the clock, midnight, then 1 a.m., then 2 a.m. You start calculating how few hours remain before morning. Stress increases, frustration grows, sleep becomes even less likely. Sleep is not something you can force, it's something you allow. If you've been lying awake for a long period, many sleep experts recommend getting out of bed and doing something calm and relaxing until sleepiness returns. The goal is to prevent your brain from associating the bed with stress and frustration. The bed should become a place connected with sleep, not anxiety. The most important message. At the end of Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker delivers a message that modern society desperately needs to hear. Sleep is not a luxury. It's not a reward. It's not something you earn after finishing everything else. It's one of the foundations upon which physical health, mental health, performance, and longevity are built. For decades, many people have treated sleep as negotiable, something to sacrifice, something to squeeze, something to postpone. The science points in the opposite direction. Protecting sleep is one of the highest return investments you can make. It improves learning, it improves memory, it improves mood, it improves creativity, it strengthens the immune system, it supports heart health, it helps regulate metabolism. And unlike many health interventions, it's available to almost everyone. No expensive equipment, no exclusive membership, no secret formula. Just a commitment to giving your body and brain the time they need to do what evolution designed them to do. If there's one lesson to take away from this entire book, it's this. Every night while you sleep, your body performs extraordinary work on your behalf. It repairs, it restores, it cleans, it organizes, it strengthens, it prepares you for tomorrow. Sleep is not time lost, it's time invested.